Welcome to the Murphy, Sam, and Jodi After the Show podcast. And
Let's take it to QS.
and some do's and some don'ts. You know, we were on vacation, so it's our second day back.
I've got the biggest don't.
Sam went on a solo vacation.
Yes.
Jodi and I, for the first time, went to Key West. It was just the two of us since our daughters are back home still working and all that kind of stuff. It wasn't a family of four vacation this time.
It was just the two of us.
Yeah.
So would you like to start? I want to say this. The Cuban coffee in Key West, when you drink it, you can see through walls.
Yeah.
Man, that's some strong, good coffee. And I always got it iced. You can get it 100 different ways.
Was it in the little
I love
cups?
that.
If you want it in the little
If you
cups.
wanted espresso, it was served however, in any different way that you would normally get coffee.
90 miles from Cuba. The
Right.
Cuban sandwiches and the Cuban coffee is insane in Key West.
So the first thing that I was going to, say about it is that when we rewinded before we went, our friend Mark was 100% right. He said, well, you're going to have a good time. He said, but you probably don't need to spend a whole week there. That's what he was.
He's like, yeah.
He actually, and there was one other person that said the same thing to me, and they were both right about that. It's a beautiful place, and it's special. It's unique.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that you can't find things to do for a week, but because it's really focused on food and the bars, and that scene. Now you've got the what's his name's house? Why can't I think
Hemingway.
Ernest Hemingway's house. Thank you.
But it's not like there's a Tanger down the street.
There's a
Or
TJ
some-
Maxx way down the street, but
Oh,
I didn't
there
go
was?
to it.
Oh yeah,
TJ Maxx on Key West?
oh yeah, they've got
Not where we were staying.
yeah, they've got all the normal strip kind of franchise stuff's there, but in Old Town, which is where we stayed, is the
Yes.
most historic part. That's where Ernest Hemingway's house was. That's really sort of the
It's where the
epicenter of-
lighthouse is.
Right. But, but the reason I bring up the multi-day thing is because the locals also will tell you this isn't the peak season for them. And I'm like thinking to myself, this is like paradise. It's out here on the water. It's summertime. Why wouldn't this be the peak season? But again, I think because it's more of the island itself is on coral. So there is no beach. Well, there's a man-made
Small
beach, but anything like that has to be, brought in because the foundation of the island is coral. So it's not going to be a place you can't walk out in, that sort of thing and all that. So they're only like designated areas, and they've got a few resorts, I guess, where you can go do the man-made beach thing. But really what Key West is about is the history and the food and the culture. The Cuban influence is really special. I love that. The harbor's beautiful. Yeah.
But yeah, their peak season is October through, I can't remember.
Cold weather.
Right. They get snowbirds.
Yeah.
So, okay, we learned that quickly. It's like, so we're not here during peak season. But it was, there were tourists all over the place, too. You could tell the locals from the tourists, too. Somebody, when I was buying a Cuban coffee, said, oh, I like your hat. Where are you from? Because the locals don't wear hats. I'm like, I'm trying to shade myself from the sun because we were out in it with almost no cover, most of the time. And so I did wear a hat and a ton of sunscreen. And my big mistake, and I know we talked about it on the show, I mentioned it, that I was not covered enough and hydrated enough. And I know that when we left there, I was dehydrated. I know I was.
Yeah, the best analogy, Sam, because you're a New Orleans native, would be peak summer walking through the French Quarter.
Every day. Five
Every
days
day
in a row.
Without the smell.
Right, in the middle of the heat.
Correct.
Or Vegas for that matter.
Yeah.
And I'm not trivializing it. It is a beautiful place, and I'm really, really glad we chose to go. It was a matter of timing. So Jodi and I adapted, and it was either early morning or it was going to be early evening, night that we would then go out and walk.
Well,
when it
we
was
learned that the
cooler.
hard way, though. We
did.
learned that 3 and 4 days in because on the third day, you went somewhere. We were going in separate directions, and I said, where I want to go is 12 blocks away. 12 blocks is nothing. Put on my hat, put on my sunscreen, and by the 10th block, I could feel I was burning. It's like I should have Ubered.
Yeah.
But it's a small area. I love to walk, and so I was happy to be staying in the middle of Old Town where we really could walk to everything.
That was
the
a
But
perk.
the question was, do you want to walk in the middle of the sun? For me, I can't do that. There were people everywhere doing that. You rent bikes, you rent scooters.
Right.
If you're sun loving, it's your spot.
How about the breeze? To keep it cool.
In the evening, it's fine.
Well, if you're out on the outer perimeter by the water, but in the city itself, there's not much of a breeze.
No.
And but even for July 4th weekend, it was not packed.
No.
It was never congested feeling the way that a lot of beaches are, for the July 4th holiday. So I guess it's just a different, experience. And if you're driving there and you live in South Florida, it's going to be a 2.5-hour drive just to get, or almost 3 hours from Miami all the way to Key West over that, that long bridge.
Yes.
But the second thing that I do think was great, and a piece of advice that I would share with anybody, it's awesome to be able to go on Yelp and TripAdvisor and get ratings that way. And I do use that, for the spontaneous decisions to make sure I'm picking a decent place for us to eat or whatever. But if you know someone who was born, raised, or spent time there, like our friend Jonathan did, that's where he was born. He told us the best places to go, some that were touristy, some that were not touristy. And I'm really glad that he did that, because Cuban Coffee Queen is touristy, but it's also a Key West tradition, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. And so they've got 4 or 5 locations and breakfast sandwiches and Cuban sandwiches and all kinds of delicious, coffees and so forth.
The one near the harbor, this is one of my favorite stories, Cuban Coffee Queen. It was one morning, we're like, let's go get brunch here, or breakfast here, and some coffee. And I didn't realize there was no seating. Like, you could sit there like on a bench out there and eat it near the harbor, but it was not sit down, be waited on. It was counter service. That's where we saw the rooster on the roof while we waited for our coffee, and sitting there on the bench, this huge iguana walks underneath us and climbs up the tree. And I get video. I just couldn't believe it. It was just so cool. That was my Cuban Coffee Queen memory. I don't even remember what I ate there.
It was a little breakfast sandwich,
Something,
I think you got.
yeah.
How many Cubans did you get, Murphy?
So I guess we did 2
You did
different.
one.
We did. Well,
I did too. I know.
oh, that's right. I had a bite of yours, and they call them Cuban mix, which is really different too, because the traditional Cuban is what, the pulled pork,
ham.
the ham, the pickle,
Cheese
the Swiss
and
cheese and
mustard.
mustard. Yeah. And so when they call it a mix, these actually had like lettuce and tomato on them and all. That was
But all
interesting.
the other stuff too.
Yeah, and it was really
Delicious.
very good. A couple of the different places.
The first one
went.
that we had together was a Cuban mix, and it was delicious. And one of the reasons it's delicious, it's super important. We always talk about the pork and the ham. It's the bread.
Yeah.
The bread matters 110%. And every single Cuban sandwich we had, the bread was right on the money, as it should have been.
Mm-hmm.
So shout out to the Cuban coffee there. Understand, and I am a coffee person. I live on it, Sam. It was almost too strong for me. I would have to go back up to the counter, and one lady, I said, I need you to add some more cream to this for me. Can you? And she goes, ha, 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 yes. And she laughed at me. She's like, I just serve it the way I like it. Because she likes it really strong, remember?
I do.
She was fantastic. And it's good.
The other recommendation from our friend Jonathan was to eat at the oldest restaurant in Key West, Pepe's. Which was awesome. And Jodi and I had done for your birthday, we had done the cruise, Sunset Cruise. That's what I can
On
think
the
of.
schooner?
Yes, on the schooner.
That was so cool. That was my favorite part, by the way.
And that was also a recommendation from Jonathan too, to check those out. There were a couple of different.
I would have done that anyway, though. I know I'm so grateful for that recommendation, but I had heard about the Sunset Cruises being something you have to do.
So when we were done with that, it was an off chance. I saw Pepe's was closing in 30 minutes, and it was walking distance from the harbor. So we walked straight there. The service was unbelievable. They weren't treating you like we're about to close at all.
Right.
And then a little bit of a history lesson that I didn't know. So it is the oldest restaurant there. It's the second oldest restaurant in Florida. But I didn't realize that Harry Truman loved Key West. Oh. And so there's a Truman Avenue. There are a whole lot of tributes to Harry Truman in Key West, including a photo of him at this restaurant at Pepe's with Jane Russell.
Oh.
I don't remember.
Was it Jane Russell or no? Actually, I'm sorry. It wasn't Jane Russell. She starred opposite Humphrey Bogart in Casablanca.
Lauren Bacall.
Thank you, Lauren Bacall. It was Harry Truman and Lauren Bacall, and in this photo that they've got in the menu. But anyway, that's
very cool.
So apparently he would visit a lot. But those recommendations from a friend You know, if you're going someplace you haven't gone before,
Try to get the local
yeah, right, because the
recommendation
local
also.
recommendation is going to be, you know, special.
Another thing that you will hear about for Key West is key lime pie, best in the world.
I haven't heard this yet.
I know. I'm trying. I have notes, okay, from vacation. I wrote all these notes. Key lime pie. I think we only understand. I mean, I wasn't looking to just. I didn't want to eat my way through this place. I didn't. But so we had 2 pieces of key lime pie. I think. One. I know. We
I
should
would
have
have had one a night just
I know.
to compare them.
Well, but I will get to the other thing regarding that in just a minute.
Oh.
But finish the Key West. I mean the key lime pie thing first.
Both pieces that I had were good, but I did not have one that blew the doors off, and that may have been our fault for not trying 100 million different. But I didn't have one that blew the doors off. I did learn, and this does not surprise me at all. We did learn that if it's green, it's not key lime pie. Like key lime pie is a mild light yellow color,
I didn't
and
know
don't
that.
try to pass it. Key limes on the outside may be green.
Yeah.
But the pie is not supposed to look green.
Well, but the inside of a key lime is yellow. Yellower than a bigger lime. Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
Didn't know that either. But so now
Learn that.
there's your litmus test. But yeah, it's and look, the thing is, every bit of key lime pie is delicious there because it's made.
You got to
there.
compete, right?
And most restaurants wouldn't dare bring it in. They're going to make it, themselves. So the other dessert that we wound up having was a recommendation from a friend of ours actually here, and it's a restaurant called Better Than Sex Dessert Restaurant. All they serve is dessert. That's all they do.
Ooh.
They don't do anything other than dessert. And it's a couple that lived in Key West that one of their New Year's resolutions in like the early 2000s was by 2005 they would open and run their own restaurant. And so the concept just kind of, developed, and they've got a couple of locations now. They've actually started to franchise it, but the ones that they own are in Key West, and this one's in Orlando. And so, yes, it's a little risque themed.
Oh, it's risque.
They do welcome, kids and all that kind of stuff, but you
Do
just
they?
need to know. Yeah,
I didn't catch that.
I was reading that on the menu.
Whoa. Well, some of
So-
the art in there you wouldn't want your kids to see.
Exactly. Well, but they'll tell you that up front. That's right. But-
Even we can't even share the
Pictures?
names of the
The desserts, yeah.
we ate.
But-
We can't share it.
But one was a red velvet pie. Was that? I mean, I don't even know what
It was
you
a
would
red
call
velvet
that.
cheesecake.
Red velvet cheesecake,
It's
right?
my favorite.
It was a sampler that we got of everything. So there was.
Four different desserts.
Now I'm trying to remember the others
Oh.
that were on it.
Well, there was some carrot. I'm
The carrot
trying
cake.
not to say
Yeah, I
the
know.
names
Well, we'll
because
just
they were
say it,
all
right.
inappropriate. But there was a carrot
The
cake.
carrot cake, yeah.
There was some sort of cinnamony thing. There was the red velvet cheesecake, and there was a chocolate.
That's
it was a
right.
straight up chocolate
Sure.
thing.
Which was delicious.
I'm trying to not say the real names, but yeah.
And then I wanted to get this, this peanut butter thing, peanut
At the
butter
end.
pie. And the server was really funny because he said, "Look, before you do this, I want to make sure. Do you love peanut butter?" I'm like, "Yeah, I love peanut butter." He said, "No. I mean, do you love you could eat an entire jar in one sitting?" I'm like, "Okay,
no,
maybe." But
Murphy still ordered it, of course.
and I ordered it, and then I understood what he meant. I could not finish it. It was
It was
three
too much
three
peanut
bites, and it's like, oh, okay, that's
Solid
it.
peanut butter.
Too rich.
No, it's peanut butter
So
and maybe
rich.
butter and cream and everything. It was too much, but it was.
The presentation of everything there was fantastic, though. I mean, I'm not saying there was too much peanut butter in it. I don't want to say that. I would take that back. But
I know.
it was
There's never too much peanut butter.
fantastic. It all tasted great. But we had already had a sample plate of desserts, and then Murphy ordered dessert.
What's the best thing you ate?
For me, while I was there, the Cuban sandwich.
Yeah.
But my favorite dessert, Murphy knows this, mango ice cream.
Mm.
There was a homemade ice cream place down the street from where we were staying, and it was so hot we'd go get a little scoop 2 days in a row. I think we did, and it was just fantastic, fresh, homemade mango flavored ice cream. I've never had better, and it was so good. I almost wanted it on the way out that day. I'm like, I want to get ice cream again, but we didn't.
But do you know, every single restaurant, it didn't matter whether it was the cafe bistro style restaurant or the dining establishments. The presentation on everything was just you can tell these local owners care about the food that they're putting out there. I don't think we had a bad meal
No,
while
we
were
didn't.
there.
The seafood is super, super fresh, as you would expect.
Yeah.
As you would expect. But it's different in that it's served with an island flair of Key West specifically.
Yeah.
A lot of coconut cream sauces with
yeah.
rice and the fish dishes. I really,
That would sound good.
I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed the Hemingway house.
Yeah.
It was a cool old house to go through. It's really true. There are like 59 cats on the premises, and you start walking around and you see them everywhere, and they just come up to you, and some of them are asleep on the roofs, and some of them are in the windows and not all of them have 6 toes, but a lot of them do.
Why is it there that they have 6 toes?
There's a whole story about it, and they tell you when you take the tour, when he first, Hemingway.
Yeah, when Ernest Hemingway first moved there, there was I don't remember, it was a boat captain that he met or somebody in military service. It might have been military service. Introduced, that was the first time he'd seen that.
He had one cat on the ship.
He was so enamored by this cat with 6 toes that guy wound up giving it to him. And so,
or giving him one of the litters, one of his kittens.
Right.
Yeah, giving him a 6-toed cat.
And it's just multiplied.
For Hemingway, it was a good luck thing, and he loved it. And they've multiplied, and they live there.
But I didn't know Ernest Hemingway's story, and a lot of the books. This is kind of sad. It made me want to go back and start to read them because I know they're classics. Many times they're English or literature courses you don't get through without reading some Ernest Hemingway.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't realize what a short time span most of his big novels were written in. It was only in about a 12-year period, and his life was just like, it was a rough life. He wound up, dying early. But
Wasn't he an alcoholic?
He was,
Yeah.
and that actually I think is what ultimately led to his death.
Mm-hmm.
But there were just like little accidents and things that would follow him, and then they'll tell you that the tour guides will say a lot of that was probably alcohol induced. He lived a hard life, but the home itself is beautiful. I think he was married like 4 times.
4 times, yeah. He had a lot of ladies in his life.
Yeah,
he did.
But you get to see
Beautiful women.
you get to see the room where he actually wrote a lot of those famous novels. That was the place that he sat to do all that. So anyway,
Right.
that was interesting. Jodi went in one of the old lighthouses.
You can tour it, you can go up in it, and Murphy opted out of that, and I'm glad that you did because you don't love heights, and it's go in, go up. I wanted to go up in it.
Right.
And sure enough, it is a small space. It's hot, and it's a spiral staircase that is only attached by a pole. And if people are coming down, you're going to pass them right there. And I went up, and once you start going up, you got to go all the way up.
Right.
You can't change your mind because I guess people might do it and tightly turn around and go back down. But to me, it's like, I'm going up, I'm going up. I'm up, I'm going to stay up here. I liked that.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a tour of the lightkeeper's house.
The light was on. It was working.
The light's on at night.
Yeah.
I went during the day. You can't tour it at night. Not that I saw. Not that I noticed.
No, you're right. It
tour
closed.
shut down at
It
5.
closed at like 5. Yeah.
So, and then the museum is the old lightkeeper's house quarters.
Yeah.
And I went through there too. And it's a lot of cool history there. It's a really good museum. Some of the lighthouse keepers were women, and that was unheard of at that time. And all of that work, I just thought that was kind of a cool tour.
Yeah.
But I'm so glad you didn't do it, Murphy, because the height thing, but mainly the climbing in a tight space, and not that the staircase didn't wobble. That's the wrong word for it. But it's not like a hard set staircase.
It just had that look to it.
It's a spiral one that's attached by one pole.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, and then with that many people potentially going up and down with you, it was a thing. I also loved the Beach Harbor area, Murphy, but I loved where we stayed. We stayed in an old motor
Motel.
lodge. It used to be an old motor lodge, but now it's been redone, and it's just like a hotel right in the middle of everything. It was called the Orchid Key Inn.
Yeah, and that's one
cool.
I found just by searching TripAdvisor and others and recommendations. Because again, first time going there, and you not knowing again you've got two different types of Key West visit, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
This is the best way to explain it. If you're going to be along the coastline, which one side of the island is Gulf
All
of
water.
Mexico, the other side is Atlantic. You can do something that's sea facing, which I think would have been nice. Those were a lot more expensive, and I guess this time of the year, I mean, to me, I would think that's peak season, but whatever. But choosing to be able to be in the city with everything being walking distance was really cool. And I don't know, the boutique kind of a hotel thing reminded me of being a kid. It was like the Days Inn, Holiday Inn, Ramada Inn kind of, except this is a 1950s one level, one story motel is basically what it was, with one room and one bathroom.
The pool was in the middle, and then all the rooms around it. And then in the morning, you could go out and get coffee, and they had a whole I guess you call it continental breakfast, but it was really nice. And then the bar in the afternoon, like right there, it's all tight and little. And around our room and around the pool, there were not big iguanas, but there were baby iguanas everywhere. It's like everywhere. It's like, oh my gosh, don't step on it. Don't step on it. It's a baby.
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of funny.
And
fun.
if I had to guess, this motel or inn only had 20 to 25 rooms tops. It's
Right.
a very small.
And the chickens
fun.
it's a real thing. Chickens everywhere, baby chicks, mama chicks, and roosters everywhere. And I read while we were there about it being they're protected there. And
Yeah, they are protected.
I can't remember. I mean, I read the history of it while we're there, and I just can't remember. It's almost
Yeah.
like when you get too much information at one time, you can't retain it all.
No,
Was fried chicken on any menu?
Yeah.
I guess so,
But it's not
but
like-
not the ones in the street.
No.
Yeah, when the island, I guess when people first started selling on the island, they would bring chickens, and they actually were for food at that point. But I think what I remember reading was when, I don't know if it was a hurricane or what it was that kind of just changed the face of the island at one point. There were chickens that still
I
remained
have it.
from old farms or something like that, or
Question
old
has been
houses.
asked to many of our visitors why Key West has so many chickens. The chickens that roam the streets are descendants of jungle fowl that originated in Cuba and the West Indies. These
Okay.
birds were brought to Key West by early settlers and used for food. They were also exploited at the time in the now illegal sport of cockfighting.
Oh, that's
Many
right.
of these birds were released when the sport became illegal. Since Key West is a no-kill island, it did not take long for the population of chickens to increase. Chickens help keep the island's insect problem under control. Their diet consists of several types of bugs.
And that's interesting because I didn't see the first fly.
Wow.
There were no mosquitoes. I mean, there was. I don't think
Chickens and iguanas eat all that stuff.
Right. I guess they do.
Yeah, but going back to wrap this, going back to what your friend Mark told us before we left his house, he was like, "Yeah, you're going to enjoy it, but after a few days, you will have seen it. You'll get it.
Yeah.
You'll understand."
Yeah, and he was right about that. So we did Sunday through Friday. I think it would have
Could have
been
done Sunday through Thursday.
yeah, right, or even Wednesday, and made it work. Still fun though. Glad we tried
Beautiful.
something new, something different. Worth it. And when you book enough in advance, and you can actually find really good deals. And
Did you see Cuba by chance? Could you see it from where you are?
Can't see Cuba.
Oh,
No.
yeah, I know it's 90 minutes or miles.
Miles.
Or whatever, but
well, I think the horizon bends too much. Even with open water, you can't see.
I thought we were flat Earth.
Can you see
I think-
see 90 miles?
I think the curvature of the Earth, maybe you get 7 miles, or something like that, 10 max maybe. But yeah, it was. But we saw the buoy, and so we did all that touristy stuff too.
Missed any part of the show? Get it all on the Murphy, Sam, and Jody podcast.